more useful for you guys to have this kind of as a tool as we go over it. I'm going to be using it here, but Brandon will have it up on the screen. Essentially what this guide is it's a 10-step process that I've developed over the years to be able to, even somebody that doesn't have a really strong background in marketing, that it helps you kind of take the steps needed to start to plan for a marketing strategy. With anything, they say if you don't have it written down, just like goals, just like sales goals, anything, if you don't know what target you're trying to hit, you're just going to kind of spin your wheels. So creating a marketing plan to people feels very taxing because they think it has to be this elaborate, 30-page document that lives in a binder that has market research and, all the personas, written out by, pages. But it really is a simplistic process. It doesn't have to be kind of this arduous thing that you have to have a master's degree in marketing and communication to be able to do. So these steps, some of them seem complicated, but they're really not. And I'm going to walk through each one and break it down with just some very practical things that you can do to start building a plan. We just went through this process internally for ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, how many pages was our plan, Brandon? 5? Yeah. So very simple. This is long, but your plan doesn't necessarily need to be. So as I go through this, feel free to stop me, ask any clarifying questions, if you have any thoughts. Want this to be very casual and collaborative. And if I'm saying anything that you don't understand, just ask me. Brandon and Nate, if there's anything while I'm going through it that you guys want to interject, feel free to do that. So the plan really starts with sitting down and understanding kind of in a broad sense, at the end of the day, when you're finished with this, what are you going to be able to answer? So you should know, once you create this plan, what are the goals that you're reaching for? And goals include sales goals, but they also include the goals that marketing has to set sales up for success. So marketing is not the sales department. Marketing's job is to bring active, qualified leads so that salespeople can follow up and close them. So in many cases, marketing kind of gets blamed for revenue numbers, but if marketing isn't, if I'm a marketer and Brandon is my salesperson, if Brandon is failing miserably at closing deals, I don't necessarily have control over that. The only control I have is bringing him good quality leads, and then it's Brandon's job to kind of finish that. Now in some smaller companies, your sales rep is also your marketer, so they're kind of wearing two hats. Sometimes that can be a conflict because how marketing is speaking to someone isn't necessarily how a closer is going to speak to someone. So there can be some contrast, but it can work. We internally act kind of as our marketing and sales team, but we have experience on the marketing side and experience on the sales side, which makes it a little easier. So understanding who your audiences are. Typically you usually don't have one, but sometimes you do. What are the right online and offline channels for you to connect with those audiences? What are the right moments to connect? When or what should you say at every interaction? How should you say it? Who should say it? And how are you going to measure it? That last portion is probably the most important thing that you will ever do when it comes to evaluating your marketing plan and how much you should spend and how much you should plan for the following years based on data. So we'll go over that towards the end. So defining your goals. I have listed here some very important key factors when it comes to creating goals for the year. So obviously you're going to have a sales goal, and you would be how many people in here have a defined sales goal for 2020 or whatever your fiscal year is already outlined? You know what you're shooting for. Half in, half out. It is surprising how many businesses have no sales or revenue goals. It's just kind of like, well, we hope we're up this year over last year, or if we break even, that's probably good. If we lose money, that's really bad. But there's really no constructive plan to say, we know what target we're trying to hit. So if you don't have a sales goal, use some historical data. If you know that your company year over year, maybe without doing any concerted marketing efforts, increases 1 to 3%, Well then, if you're gonna start marketing and you're gonna put more of an effort towards creating leads, maybe you want to, look for a 3%, 3 to 5% growth. The only thing I would encourage you not to do, and business owners have a tendency to say, let's set this lofty sales goal for this year. We did $1 million last year, we're gonna do $2 million this year. And it makes them feel really good emotionally, like, wow, the thought of hitting $2 million. But then you go throughout the year and you realize you're gonna do 1.3, which is a really nice increase over the previous year, and it's probably steady growth that doesn't tax your team or your internal processes, but then all of you feel like you're failing throughout the year when you really have things to be cheering about and things to feel good about. So make sure that your sales goals are realistic, that they're not kind of stretch goals that you probably won't meet, but if you did, you're going to feel really good about it. You need to stretch yourself a little bit, but not to the point where you're kind of all year long feeling like you're failing. What are marketing's lead generation goals based on sales numbers? So that's essentially, if you know that, out of every 10 leads you close 2, you know what your average value of a customer is, and if you don't know, that is one thing that I encourage you to figure out. What is the value of every customer, either on a yearly basis or a lifetime basis? And how much does it typically cost you to acquire that customer? So whatever marketing investment or salespeople that you're paying, marketing teams that you're paying, how much are you willing to spend to get a lead? So if a lead is worth $10,000, I would say most people are willing to pay $1,000. If I said, give me $1,000 and I'm going to give you a $10,000 flooring job, you're probably going to say, okay, that's, depending on your profit margins and what you make. So you really have to understand there are some numbers out there for your industry that will tell you what a good cost per lead is, to give you a benchmark. But you also have to feel comfortable with that cost per lead. And a lot of times your internal costs, if your costs aren't really efficient internally, you may not be able to pay as much for a lead. But you have to kind of have that benchmark, so then you know how many leads you need each year to reach those sales goals. It should all be based on numbers. How will you align spend with each part of the marketing funnel? So when you look at the marketing funnel, the top being awareness, so that would be branding. If you're doing billboard advertising, maybe you have some ads on the radio. There are a lot of different marketing tactics that we would consider brand, and brand should not be the largest part of your spend. There's a lot of calculations out there. It's different for every business. Brand typically is 10 to 20% of your marketing spend. Middle of funnel is that consideration phase. So how do you get in front of somebody when they're considering making a potential buying decision? So, each of your businesses is going to be very different. If you're B2B or B2C, those buying cycles, some are going to be very long, some are going to be very short. But how do you make sure you show up when people are starting to kind of shop around for the product and service that you might be able to sell to them? And then conversion. That is that point where somebody knows they're buying it, they have pretty much narrowed it down, and you need to make it very easy for them to either follow up with you, fill out a form, call your business, order something online, whatever that is. So in those 2 middle sections of the funnel, how much money you spend there is typically, again, going to vary greatly depending on your business. B2B and B2C are very different. B2C, it's easier to spend a lot in that bottom portion of the funnel because you can convert people a lot quicker. B2B is going to be, that mid part of the funnel is going to be probably a more important area, and then maybe your sales reps are following up and they're kind of the ones going in and nurturing those leads and really getting them to that end point. So how much are you willing to pay for a lead? That's what we talked about just a little bit ago. It would be great. I wish we had enough time today, because helping you understand how to calculate that is really important, and I can maybe get Bonnie some information just to give you some idea of how do you figure out what your cost per lead should be, how much the value of a customer is to you, and different things like that. So what does success look like to all stakeholders? That's really important, because everyone on your team has a different expectation for marketing. So in some cases, people think it's marketing's job to reach the sales goal, and it's part of their job, but it's not solely their job. Some stakeholders think that 10 times ROI is what makes them feel good, or 5 times. So it's what's the realistic expectation, and make sure everybody's on the same page with what you expect your marketing plan to do for your business? How much do you expect for them to set you up for success when it comes to your sales goals? And then how will you measure results? Most important thing that you can do. So we have over 115 clients at Wide Up, and we have maybe a handful that can measure results down to every dollar that comes into the business. It's a very mature way of marketing, but it's the future of marketing. If there is anything that you work on in your business over the next 3 years, it is to close the loop on all the dollars that you spend to bring business into your company. So that means that, maybe it's through a CRM system, maybe it's through an ERP system, but when you can spend money in marketing and you can know every time a lead comes into your business where that lead originated. So if they came in through a paid search ad, if they called you from your website, if they found you organically, if they filled out a form on your website and came from social media, no matter what it is, once they come in and you can tag that lead based on how somebody found you, and then you can tie in the revenue to that, you now will never again wonder how to make more money, how to get more leads, where your leads are coming from, and how much money you need to spend to meet your sales goal every year. And we're seeing more and more businesses start to get more sophisticated with it. You can tie your website into your CRM or ERP system, but it's picking the right one. We see clients all the time that pick a CRM because it's the one the salespeople like and they're used to it, but nobody stops to say, does this integrate with our WordPress site? Does it integrate with whatever form plugin we're using? Does it integrate with our ERP system or however we're tracking projects and selling projects and following up on projects? So a CRM or an ERP system that doesn't integrate with analytics, with Google, with whatever website system you're using, you're going to end up replacing that in the future. Yes.
What's your favorite CRM system right now?
I would say that Salesforce is probably the most sophisticated with integrating with a lot of different types of website software. WordPress is obviously, Google has now kind of put their star on WordPress. But yeah, Salesforce has the best integrations with analytics, AdWords, or Google Ads, all of those things.
It can be a little too a big thing to swallow for smaller businesses, but just the flexibility of it and just how much information you can capture and manipulate within the system is really good. There's ones that are a little more affordable. They have some limitations, and then of course there are industry specific ones. So we work with roofers that have a roofer specific one. And, it kind of just depends on what your goals are. With an ERP, there's some that are really good on the marketing side. There's some that are really good on the inventory management and the accounting side, and it kind of just depends on what your struggles are there. And we. There's companies that specialize just in ERPs and implementations and all. So we tend to work on them just from the side of integrating with marketing because we see value in measuring those results, and sending it in. There's still plenty of our clients, especially some in the more conservative communities that are still working off of paper. So even just getting something, or even just working out of your inbox, getting something a little more sophisticated to measure some of those results can really help out.
If you get a new client starting out with nothing, do you have pre-built templates for something like Salesforce to cut through 50% of the setup or anything like that to or do you guys stay out of that side and you just tie it to marketing?
There's some companies that might be able to help implement that a little bit more. The thing is with Salesforce, because it integrates with accounting and all, it just it kind of wedges itself into every part of your business. It's a big pill to swallow. It's also a time investment, but it's a little hard to do it just out of the box.
We help them more on the side of integrating their website forms or setting up conversion goals, making sure it's connecting to Google Analytics, and we have reporting that we pull through, it's called Google Data Studio, so it kind of shows everything that's happening from a marketing perspective and then can integrate into everything else, and Salesforce can kind of tie all of that together. Salesforce does have some, while you can, make it completely robust and huge, they do have kind of pared down versions that you can have for smaller business. But again, it really depends on your industry, what you're doing and how you're gonna integrate it.
If I can just tap in real quick on the measuring results, the reason marketing in the past has gotten, in my opinion, a bad rap because you can really highlight a lot of good numbers, but those numbers, do they actually make a difference to the business, you know? And sometimes that's, you know, just traditional, you know, styles like, you know, billboard companies will say, you know, you're gonna get this many views on it. Yeah, well, and so just
So
because
it's, you know what I
just
mean,
because it's next to a highway doesn't mean that it's actually going to raise your business, you know. And even same thing with you know, social media. You know, there's a lot of ways to get something viral and to get a lot of impressions and likes and shares on something, but is that bringing in more business? And so we find that it's really important to measure those results to see, even if you're getting traffic to a website, you know. So back when I started in marketing, you know, one of the things we always reported on with a client was, you know, how many page views are you getting? Is it higher than what you had last month or what you had year over year? You know, and those were important metrics. But just because you're getting a lot of people to a site doesn't necessarily mean that it's people that are the right people, right? So when I first started at Wide Up, we had a client that they're an event center in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they had just a massive surge of traffic one day. And we're like, man, this is really awesome. Let's embrace this and all. It turns out that it was the day that who's the actor that played Snape in Harry Potter? Alan Rickman, yeah. Or Hans Gruber from Die Hard, right? And it was the day that he died, and rest in peace. And so this you know, event facility, they had a headshot of him, and that was showing up #1 in Google. So everyone was doing the search. It got, you know, like a ton more searches for that. Are those people that are going to be coming to an event space in Lancaster, Pennsylvania? Probably not. You know, when we saw the traffic, a lot of it was coming from actually international. So it's traffic, but is that measuring the success of marketing? Is that, you know, helping grow their business? No. And so you know, measuring those results, that's where the ERP or CRM, you know, just kind of closing the loop. You can better define what the leads are that are coming in, the traffic and the impressions on a billboard. You know, there's ways that we can track, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but there's ways to track all that stuff so you can say, yes, this billboard contributed to X number of dollars in sales for the company and it's worth an investment, or no one called it. People saw it, but no one actually called it. So there's a lot you can do with that, but it's important to figure out how to define those goals, what are those goals, and then how to measure it.
And as long as you're staying within that brand spend where you're not spending 40% of your marketing budget on billboards, it's okay if you don't get a direct ROI that you can measure from that, because you can see things like website traffic, your brand searches increasing, direct traffic to the website through your URL. That can tell you that people are starting to recognize your name more, especially if we see those numbers going up. What Brandon was talking about too is something that we call vanity metrics. So it's really a lot of SEO companies. We've all gotten a bad rap because of vanity metrics. We have a lot of competitors that will report on, oh, your traffic numbers are up and more people are staying on your site longer and they're visiting more pages. And while that used to be a great thing in the past, we find today that a visitor that's visiting too many pages means they're lost and they're not finding what they need on your website. So people consume information by kind of breezing through headlines and maybe consuming a video, but we don't find anymore that people are visiting 5, 6 pages on a website. A good navigation and a good structure to your site will get them to the information they need very quickly, and then get them through that sales funnel, get them filling out a form or calling you or whatever that is much quicker than they have in the past. Okay, so I'm going to breeze through this one. Knowledge gathering and research. So it's crazy how much tribal knowledge we have within our businesses, and we don't necessarily tap into that. Either we have a person that's our marketing person and they kind of work independently on an island, maybe with sales a little bit to help them understand what they're doing. But we actually find even in larger, medium to larger size companies, that the internal teams don't talk to each other very much. Sales doesn't talk to marketing a lot, and sales is usually saying sales are down because marketing's not doing their job, and marketing's saying, hey, we're bringing you all these leads and you guys aren't closing them. That's not our fault. But we find that when you can have collaborative conversations, not only with marketing, but people, your customer service reps that are talking to customers, to be able to ask good questions. Hey, were you on your website before you called us? Were you on our website? Did you find everything you wanted? How did you get to our website? What did you search in Google? I mean, that's a question that we never ask people when they say, oh, I was online and I searched and you guys came up. You can really gain a lot of information by just asking a couple more layers of information of somebody when your customer service reps or your sales reps have somebody on the phone. Also with good measurement, obviously, you have some data that can see that. But, a lot of you, as you're kind of moving into roles maybe from succession planning and you're in a second or third generation business, there's a lot of knowledge in the people that have run the company before, people that have been in leadership positions, people that maybe have even retired, to talk to them just about their customers. Sometimes we think like, oh, well, they did stuff so different, like they never did digital marketing and they weren't even bought into online. But they have these nuggets of information, things that had worked in the past that you can extract some good information from your customers. So we don't tap enough into our current customer base that love us, they're engaged with our businesses, they refer us to other people. How many times have you sat down with one of those customers and said, tell me why you work with us? Like when you were looking or shopping for flooring, what did you look for? What were you searching online? What did you like about our website? What did you like about the experience once you called us or filled out a form? Did we get back to you right away? So, you've got this profile of the people that are engaged, they love you, they always buy from you, they refer you to other people. They are the people that you need to find more people like. And building that profile off of their feedback and input, how can we get better? What is, if you thought we were a 9, how would we have been a 10? What is one thing that you can tell me that we can do to give you a 5-star experience instead of a 4? I mean, we live in a 1 or 5-star world anymore, so 4 isn't really reality, but we either upset somebody and they're going to give us a 1, or we've made them happy and pretty much they're going to give us a 5, or they're not going to review us at all.
There's no nuance to it anymore.
No, there's really not. And if we get a 4-star, it's kind of like, well, why did they give us 4 stars? Like, why didn't they give us 5? But it's like, would we all be happy if somebody said, you know what, you're 4 out of 5. It's pretty darn good. The average is 3. You're above average, but that's not good enough for us. We all want to be 5s. So any information that you can gather just about past marketing tactics, things that they did in the past, things that they know never worked, things that did work, any just information they have about customers and why customers love working for you. Maybe you changed a process, maybe you do something different, maybe you speak differently about a product. Maybe you have products that you should get rid of and products that you should elevate. So any kind of research you can do. And then marketing competitive research. While you don't want to be like your competitors or kind of piggyback, there are a lot of things that you can learn, good and bad, about what your competitors are doing. So there are audits that you can do just to find out from a technical perspective, as far as search and search engine optimization, what they're doing, even how they're speaking. If they're ranking really, really well and you just have never been able to compete with them, look at the content on their website. What are they talking about? What questions are they answering for customers that are similar to your customers? So yes, there's a lot that you can garner from that. So defining and segmenting your audience. So how many of you in the room have just one type of person that you're working with, or do you have multiple audiences that you feel that you're trying to capture, different types of customers? And a good example might be, if you sell flooring, do you sell flooring to commercial businesses? Do you sell flooring to residential customers? Right there, 2 completely different audiences that are going to buy differently, that need to be spoken to differently. Do you think that you have kind of those personas of who you're speaking to and how you need to speak to them? I feel like that's, over the years, that's been one area of sophistication that businesses at least know, these are who our customers are. This is how we go after them. This is how they purchase. There are opportunities in here though, because you could have audiences that you don't necessarily know about, and sometimes sometimes we kind of put them at the bottom because they're our least, they're the area that we grow the least in, but sometimes there's opportunity within those audiences to actually bring them up and get them to buy more. We have manufacturers that sell within a dealer network, and they rate their dealers in tiers, and in many cases we find that maybe a tier 3 and tier 4 dealer stay tier 3 or tier 4 because they're not doing anything to really set them up and give them tools that they need to sell more of their products. So it's kind of like, well, you know, we've always sold this from this manufacturer and this manufacturer, but this guy gives us better rates, or they give us more sales literature, they give us a better website experience. But asking them, you know, what you can do to help them sell more, or maybe helping them from a marketing perspective, will move those up to a higher tier. So your audiences and your customers are the same. So it's just something to always look at, but really understanding who you're selling to. You know, what is the age demographic? Do they like to shop online? If it's an older demographic, is your website ADA compliant so that they can read it if they're visually impaired? Do you give them an experience to reach out to you in multiple ways depending on who they are? Younger generations want to chat, older generations want to call, some are in between with email. The expectation for all audiences today is that you do get back to them in a very timely manner, especially when they fill out a website form. We have so many clients, and I can't tell you how often I fill out a form on a website and I either never hear back or it takes days for me to hear back. And by that time, I'm already shopping somewhere else and talking to the person that got back to me the quickest.
What do you think is an appropriate time? Because we've had people who fill those out at 7 o'clock at night, and by the next morning at 8 a.m. they're already calling. Nobody got back to me. I mean, there's got to be a happy medium. I mean, obviously we have both commercial and a residential division, and we understand we're service, but we always kind of go back and forth, like, because we do have people who honestly should be better, but then we have people that are pretty good at responding. Well, do you guys find is there an average that, hey, this is the time that you have to respond to this person?
It would depend on the industry. It depends on what you set as the expectation. It's really helpful to set that expectation on the thank you
Yes.
page.
Okay, like
So you know, once they fill out the form and they hit submit, where do they go then?
right.
A lot of times it just goes to a thank you, we'll get back to you.
Right.
We'll get back to you shortly.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? So it's all about expectation. If
Yeah.
somebody is assuming, okay, they should get back to me in a couple hours, if you haven't set the expectation, which shortly is, so it typically, you know, create a window for yourself, and then you need to set that expectation with whoever answers those emails. So if as a company you decide we want to get back to every customer within 2 hours during business hours, you do that. For every customer that reaches out to us off business hours, we need to get back to them within 2 hours of when we open the next morning. Then that's the expectation that you set. Then you let the customer know what to expect. We will get back to you within 2 hours. Off business hours, we will get back to you within 2 hours of the next business day. We open at blah, blah, blah. So as long as you set an expectation, they're not sitting there wondering, like, well, are they ever going to get back to me? Well, let me reach out to this person. So missed expectation is typically where you lose a potential customer.
It's funny you say that, because that's my mantra. You have to set the expectations, like with customer service.
Yeah, our teams do it internally. I mean, when they communicate throughout my career. Oh, well, I asked John if he could, you know, do this thing for me, and it's been 2 days and I haven't heard back from him. Okay, well, did you tell John when you needed it, and did you ask him if he could meet that deadline? And we don't set that expectation. John, I need you to get this report to me. Will you be able to get it to me by Monday morning at 10 a.m.? If John doesn't ever respond to that, well then you need to go speak to John. But if John says, yes, I can meet that 10 a.m. deadline, I'll have it to you by then there's no wiggle room, there's no gray area there. John didn't get it to you on time, or John did get it to you on time, and that's the conversation that you have. But we're always like, so, you know, we're moving so fast, and we do it with our customers too. I mean, those thank you pages, in most cases, how many of you have ever read the thank you page on your website that comes up after somebody fills out a form?
That I have.
That's good. But have you read it from the view of the customer? Do they understand what they're gonna get? We have a higher ed customer that has requests for information forms, and I knew that nobody had ever read those because they get a thank you page that comes up, and then they get an email that says apply now. So if I'm saying I would like more information on this major, and then you send me an email saying apply now, and I get no information, that is a huge missed expectation. But they don't read it in the mind of their audience. So what does that specific audience expect for you to communicate with them based on them giving you information?
I would also say, if there are other things that they can be looking at, especially on your website, or other resources that you can provide to them in the meantime. So the 7 p.m. person that fills out your form and you can't get back to them until next business day, are there things that you can put on your thank you page that says, check out this video about us, or
Yeah, in
check
the
out this
meantime,
FAQ
here are some
video?
projects that we've done recently. If it's a commercial customer, show commercial products. If it's a residential customer, show residential products. But yeah, giving them something to continue to engage with you until you can get back to them is always a great idea. Okay, so gap analysis. Gap analysis is, some of this would be hard for you to do internally unless you had some real technical knowledge of SEO. Now, if you have marketing teams that are knowledgeable about these things, sometimes it's even difficult. The jack of all trade in marketing is it's a dying art. Years ago, 5-10 years ago, you could kind of be a marketing generalist. Like, you knew how to do social media, you could do some writing, you knew that good content filled with the right keywords could get you to rank well on Google. They knew how to write a direct mail piece. They had print vendors that they could work with as far as direct mail went. But today, online visibility especially is one of the most difficult and complex beasts out there. You can look at a competitor with a crappy old website and they're outranking you all day long and you just have no idea why. And there are reasons probably, but I don't necessarily know that a marketing generalist would be able to dig in and figure that out. Sometimes it's proximity, where somebody's searching on a mobile device. Is the competitor closer than you are and they're showing up in the map pack and you're not? Sometimes it's domain authority. They've just been around for so many years, and that domain, no matter what their website looks like or what the experience is like, they're just outranking you because maybe your business is 20 years newer than theirs. So an on-site and off-site audit is kind of a way that we help our clients right away say, let's diagnose the things that we have to fix, because there are always going to be, when you go through this process, there are always going to be foundational things that you need to work on in order to set yourself up for success when it comes to really executing a marketing plan. So in an on-site audit, you're looking for things that are very technical in the code of your website. So that is, your website will allow something called a meta description, which describes each page and specifically how Google should showcase, or any search engine should showcase that to someone that's searching something relevant to that page. Looking at, if you're very image driven, so, if people are wanting to visualize your products, to pick something out, you should have alt tags on those, which is, it's a description of the image so that somebody knows exactly what they're looking at, and Google knows how to serve that up as a search result. Same thing with video. It should be tagged. If it's on YouTube, it should have a caption. Basically, the entire video should be written in the written word. Again, that's for ADA compliance, and that's for just anybody that is searching for something and you want a search engine to show that as a result.
And there's also a lot of ways to really mess up a website accidentally. So we've seen it in the past where a whole website is hidden from Google because there's one little line of code that says, Google, don't look at this website. And
it's called a no index.
Yeah, it's called a no index tag, and sometimes that happens when you're building a new website, and then because if you have a new website and you have your existing website, you want the new website hidden until it's ready. You don't want it as at 50%. You don't want that visible to Google. But when you move it to a live environment, sometimes if that tag doesn't get removed, Google says, oh, well, this website, they don't want us to show it, so they hide. And what would happen, the only way you would find out is if you did an audit, or when you discover, hey, I've been searching for my name and I don't find us anymore. Or we haven't gotten any leads from our new website. What happened? We're not getting any phone calls. And that, by then, it's too late. You have to kind of rebuild some of that work to be found by Google. There's also a lot that can be done with speed. Google really emphasizes speed. there was one study, and I don't have the number in front of me, but with Amazon, there was something that they'd said that, like, if you speed up Amazon 1 second faster in the load time, you know, we're used to, I remember when I was, you know, first building websites, and it was, you know, you would have to wait 30 seconds or a minute for the image to load and for all those things. But now, if it doesn't load in like 3 seconds, we're getting back and we're going somewhere else.
What is wrong?
And so the study was done with
Frustrating
the study was done with Amazon that when they sped it up 1 second faster, it led to like $80 million in sales. You know, just because, you know, people were going to that site instead of going somewhere else. So obviously for smaller sites, you know, there's you're not going to get that much revenue from speeding it up, but it is a ranking factor. Google says that we place an important value on the speed of your website, and it was just announced that Chrome, the browser that Google owns, they are now in their next version, they're going to be given a little warning sign to say you're about to click on a slow website. So yeah, so that's.
How do you define a slow website? Like, what is the quantifiable?
Loading in 3 to 5 seconds? would you
There's
say?
some
Right?
benchmarks. Yeah,
Okay.
it depends on. I would say once you start getting past like 5 seconds, there's a few different technical parts to it. There's you know, the idea of first meaningful paint. You know, so once you click on something and it's all white, you know, then that means that the site has kind of loaded, but not all the way. And then when you start seeing that first image or first text, that's the first meaningful paint. It means that, you know, it's letting you know that something's happening. You know, sometimes you might see a circle or, you know, something spinning to let you know, hey, we're here, we're just in the background loading up. And so that can be measured. You know, once you get that to like maybe 2 seconds, but then 3 to 5 seconds, the whole site should be loaded. Oftentimes what happens is, you know, after a few years of, you know, website being built, and then you add
Uploading
this
your
code,
own images that are
added-
huge in
yeah,
size.
add in huge images, or, you know, all this different tracking software. You used to use the CRM, and now you use a different one, but both codes on there. You know, the more that you keep adding to it, it slows it down. So it's something, and especially on mobile. That's Google is a mobile first index now. So it used to be a few years ago that you had a desktop version, and then you had a m.url. So it was a mobile version, and that was because, you know, we only had 2G speeds, and so it took longer. And so it used to be almost viewed as two separate websites, and that, you know, you would have less content, less images on your mobile site. Well, now Google says, well, that's the most important thing now. So we actually crawl, and we judge your website based on the mobile version. So if you have two different websites, then that means, and you have, you know, 50% less content on your mobile, then Google's not seeing that from the desktop version. So the speed can impact that as well. So you have to have a fast mobile version of your website.
It's really important, especially when you build a new site, that you preserve the SEO equity that you have. So when you build a new site, if you're working with just a website development company that isn't really ingrained in search engine optimization, they may build the site but bypass meta descriptions, alt tags, making sure that you have the proper heading tags in a specific order so that Google understands everything about your site and your pages. So, and then any pages that have changed, maybe the URL changed, your service pages now kind of the URL structure of them is a little bit different. If there aren't redirects set up from your old site links to your new site links, all of these are things that Google is going to start kind of deducting points in a way. To say, okay, you know, you've launched a new website, but now it doesn't have anything that optimizes and helps Google understand what your website is about. So having somebody from an SEO perspective look at your new site before it launches and have all of those pieces, puzzle pieces in place is really, really critical to launch a new site. Because a new site should actually help your rankings, not hurt them. And it can if it's not done right. So an off-site audit, that's really us looking at the internet and seeing what information Google is displaying about your business. If you've moved locations different times, if you've changed phone numbers, if maybe the name of your company has changed. There are directories that index your information all across the internet, thousands and thousands of them. There's probably 30 to 40 now, maybe, that Google really cares about, that your name, address, phone number, description, your information needs to be consistent. That's part of your ranking factor. So understanding kind of how your online presence looks You know, is your Google My Business listing up to date? Are you taking advantage of all of the things that Google offers within that business listing? If you have multiple locations, do you have a listing for each location? So the offsite audit will help you understand kind of where you are and what cleanup and enhancements and optimization you can do to your online presence. Competitive analysis, we talked about this a little bit ago. It's really understanding, even from an on-site technical perspective, how is Google indexing and what things are your competitors doing to gain more visibility than you are online. And you can kind of peer into that a little bit and see what they're doing. A website UX and conversion audit. So this is really important because while Google used to index websites differently than they do today, Google doesn't stop when the searcher clicks on a link and now Google's job is done. Google is actually watching everything that happens on your website. They know if somebody is in there kind of messing around, takes no meaningful action, goes back to the search results page, gets one of your competitors' listings, goes to their site, and takes a meaningful action. That tells Google that your competitor is a better result for that specific keyword search than your website. So how your website is set up, how someone navigates through it, how they find information, how they take meaningful actions is all part of a ranking factor with Google in determining if your website is giving a good enough experience. Google's kind of creating a layer in between your customer and your website because they don't trust websites to give someone a good experience. It's why the search results page continues to change. They're giving more and more information. They're trying to answer questions, pulling content from your website or another website of authority to say, here's the most relevant answer to this question that you're posing, or here's a business listing with a description. Here are products you can actually click on Google and buy. So really, they would rather somebody stay within Google to get all of the answers they need and to be able to click onto your phone number or click straight into a form off of your Google My Business profile instead of actually going to your website. And we only see that enhancing in the future.
I want to add in on that conversion audit. I have this.
Oh,
slide.
yeah.
So, so just like there's a funnel for the sales funnel, there's also a funnel for your website. You know, so if you say that you have 5,000 visitors that are coming to your website and you have a 2% conversion rate, that means that, 2% of the people that come to your website are actually filling out a form or contacting you, however you measure, success. If you say, in this math equation, it's 100 leads, 2%, and your marketing goal is to double that, to get 200 leads, well, what are you going to do? It's a lot harder to double the number of visitors to come to your website. It's a lot easier if you can figure out a way to improve your conversion rate. And so that's a part of conversion optimization, is figuring out where are they falling off. So in this example, the navigation point is that they're going from a home page to a service page or product page, and then to a contact page, and then the form interaction, form completion. A lot of times what we see is that forms are way bigger than they need to be. For someone to reach out to you, typically, unless you're e-commerce, and there's a whole different conversation we can have about that, but if you are a service-based company, do you need to have 50 form fields? Do you need to know their address? Do you even need to have 10? You're gonna have, if you have a sales team or customer service team that is going to be interacting with them, what's the least amount of information that you need to get them on the phone or in an email to set your team up for success. You might need to know if they are within your service area. You might need to know what they're interested in, but do you need to know their fax number? Do you need to know their company name? What's that information?
You need to know every spec for every single part of the product.
Mm-hmm.
Because we find sometimes that they're trying to eliminate the sales process. And that person-to-person interaction, how many times have you heard somebody say, like, oh yeah, we really have a hard time selling, but if we can get them here, if we can get them on site, if we can get them to our facility, if we can get them to our showroom, man, we close 98% of our sales. So don't let your website be a deterrent from ever getting that conversation. And a lot of times it is, because you're trying to sell too much on the website instead of just trying to get as the minimal amount of information you need to follow up with somebody. So in this scenario, essentially what Brandon's saying here is if they land on your homepage and they're having a poor experience, they can't find where they want to go, the navigation doesn't work properly, or maybe it's a bad mobile experience, you can lose up to 40% of the visitors that have come to your website. So automatically you've lost 2,000 people. And then you can see it just keeps going further. If your service pages aren't set up well, they don't give the right information, if somebody can't find what they need, another 35% gone. Contact page, if you don't have a form and they want to fill out a form, you just have an email and a phone number, again, 15% of people are gone. If the form is too long, if the form is hard to fill out, if it's glitchy, doesn't work well, there you go, there's another 8% of users. So fixing these areas up here gives you the opportunity to double, triple, quadruple your actual leads by giving them a better experience as they go through your website.
And one of the things that you can do is there's a few different softwares that we call them heat mapping softwares, and that they measure, they anonymize the data, but they kind of track how people are interacting with your website. You can do it based on like a heat map study where you can see, okay, people are clicking on this. Well, is that something that they can click on? Does it look like a button, but it's not actually clickable? Well, maybe that's creating some confusion. Do you see that people are only scrolling down, 50% of your website, and the real call to action is below that part? You need to be able to, you can also adjust that based on mobile, so your mobile experience, people might not be scrolling far enough down to see what your call to action is. And then you can actually even track them, so you can see, again, it's anonymous data, but you can kind of watch people and see how, okay, they click here, and then they hit the back button because they didn't find what they wanted, and they click here again. And some of it's anecdotal, but if you kind of watch that over time, you can get some understanding of, okay, people might be confused here. Maybe we're using the wrong language, or maybe we need to change this image or this button,
Or people are reading this paragraph and trying to click on it, which means they want to learn more about this information, so we should have a page that actually goes deeper into that piece of content. So channel one other thing with gap analysis, so the last audit would be a content audit. So really understanding what content you have on your website, is there opportunities to pare content down, are there opportunities to enhance content? There's a lot of data out there about how much, what word counts are the best, when should you have bulleted lists, when should you give people an opportunity to browse, how should you take them deeper into content but allow them to make that decision instead of just giving all of the content up front. You should never, if you've got a desktop website that is just filled with content and then you say, okay, this is going to be way too much on mobile, so just take half of the content away on mobile, that is a very bad thing. If the content is relevant enough to be on your website, you either, number one, you have too much on desktop, or you need to find a way to get that information displayed well on mobile, because Google is looking again at your mobile index first, so they can't index content if it's not there. Okay, channel strategy. So this is really looking at, I know I saw on the sheet some of the things that you guys wanted to know about. It's always social media, social media, social media. So channel strategy is determining what channels are going to be best for your business when it comes to marketing. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of fads, things come in and out. We have clients all the time ask us, oh, should I be on Instagram? Should I be on Pinterest? Should I be on Twitter? Should we be, on Snapchat? We hear all the kids are on Snapchat, and it's like, it's easy to kind of try and get into the fads, or you see on one of your competitors' website that they have, icons for every single social media, they still have Google Plus on there, and it's like, wait, should we be doing that? Why are they doing it? Just because a competitor is doing it doesn't mean it's working well for them, or it's showing them any kind of a return on investment. When it comes to social, so what we say is, if you're not spending any money on Facebook, and not every business should spend money on Facebook. Again, I keep using flooring, but if I was a flooring company and I wanted to show some really awesome visuals of rooms that, we've done, maybe I would spend money on a carousel ad on Facebook that can showcase a lot of the projects and give somebody an opportunity to reach out. Great place to get in front of people. But if you're making that post organically and having an expectation that people are going to see it, interact with it, that's pretty much kind of, that's all over with Facebook. So
yeah,
1% or less.
Yeah, when we say organic, it means someone making a post on a Facebook page. and then their audience seeing it. And I do have an example in here. Home Depot, their main Home Depot page. Now Home Depot also has pages for each individual, local location, but they have almost 5 million people that like this page. And I took a post from about a day ago and looked at it, and it looks like, it looks,
Is it 80?
yeah,
It's like 80.
it looks like it's 89 people liked it, 13 comments, and 4 shares.
Now imagine if they had 500 followers. It's pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
So even with 5 million followers, that's about the most engagement that they got on an organic post.
Yeah, so, Facebook and Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, Twitter, even, Google, they are in the business of making money. And so,
And not being evil.
And they make, well,
They dropped that.
They dropped that now.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Facebook kind of got us all hooked in and got
Yeah.
brands hooked in and said, there used to be, 5-6 years ago, it used to be, if you made a post, a good portion of your audience would see it, 10-15%, and that, you could do a lot of good with that. But now it's dropped to probably under 1%. That if you make an organic post, that probably, maybe under 1% of your audience will see it. If they like it, if they interact with it, then Facebook says, well, we'll show it to some more people. And we'll just keep showing it a little bit more, but we're gonna kind of cap it at some point, unless you pay. If you pay, send us a few bucks and we'll show it to more people. But that's showing it to your audience. It's not an ad, it's showing it to your audience that Facebook's saying, you need to pay in order to show up. And that's fine. There's definitely a benefit to it. I think what we're trying to say in the channel strategy is, what channels are your customers on, and where do you think you can succeed? We wouldn't recommend, unless you have an unlimited budget, we wouldn't recommend doing every single social platform. We wouldn't recommend doing every platform. It kind of just makes sense to figure out where the platforms that your people are on, your potential audience is on, and where can you either build that community or reach them when they're interested in purchasing.
Now it is important with Facebook that if somebody goes to your page, that it looks like someone pays attention to it. Because there is a trust factor in knowing that you keep up with your content. When somebody goes to your website, you don't have events on there from 2 years ago, that your last blog post was from 2014.
That your copyright
That,
is
that your
this
copyright
year.
is 2015 at the bottom of your website, that your last organic post on Facebook was in 2018 at your company picnic or whatever it was. So making sure that at least once a week, that's what I recommend, at least once a week you are making an organic post that is either sharing something about your company internally or your products or services. But if you're still paying somebody to post once every single day or a couple times a day or even a few times a week and you're not getting engagement, you really don't have to do more than once a week. And if you are in an industry where you can gain traction, which yours would not be an industry where we would say spend money on social media and target aerospace or even LinkedIn. Sometimes LinkedIn can be a good strategy, but again, LinkedIn used to be much easier to gain traction. You can still, as you're connected with people, they will see your content, but that's even dwindling just a little bit. But you can spend a lot of money on channels, and you can actually gain a lot of leads from channels, which will give you, it's kind of smoke and mirrors. It can give you the impression that these are really great lead sources from us. But if you start to talk to people about those leads and they say, well, yeah, I follow up on 10 leads a day from Facebook, but I literally never close a sale. But I get half as many leads from Google Ads, and 99% of those turn into a sale. Well, does it make you feel good to get leads? Well, maybe marketing, or maybe your marketing company, because again, a vanity metric that says, well, you should be good about this, we're getting you tons of leads. But the quality of a lead, I'm sure every one of us would rather get less leads of higher quality than a ton of leads and hope they're good quality. So quality of lead on a channel is important. Again, that's where that closing the loop and measurement comes in, knowing how much money you made from a channel and a lead source is really important so you can make good decisions. We had a client that saw a huge opportunity in Texas from a paid ad perspective. By far was blowing lead source out of the water. I mean, the leads were coming in like crazy, and we weren't fully able to measure yet. They did Salesforce did an integration, and we found that we had spent a ton of money in Google Ads in Texas, and not one ever turned into a sale. So, of course, we stopped spending money in Texas. But if they couldn't close that loop, they could have wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next few years in Texas because it seemed like it was a really, really good lead source.
Quick question. You might cover this in the content strategy thing, so save it for then if necessary. But like, when you guys work with a company, okay, I'll use my company for example. We sell towing equipment. It's like, no one in this room probably has any connection to that other than being towed by a company that has towing equipment. How do you guys figure out how to even like reach those people? Like I know for us, towing companies, very generational business, very mom and pop. Most of the people making the buying decisions are probably like Facebook users, like my parents' age, you know. But there's also, it's generational, so there's a lot of guys my age working in the business that are starting to influence what their, you know, dad or whatever is buying for the business. So, like, how do you guys get to know those different industries to even know what to target in Facebook? Because I even struggle with it, and I'm connected to it. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
the
what
answer
people
is
like
we
me
don't.
are
The
going to be
answer is we
searching
don't.
for.
We
Yeah.
don't. So Facebook is not a good strategy for all of our clients. And we have clients that come in and they're like, well, we've been spending money on Facebook and we just haven't seen much. Well, you probably shouldn't be spending money on Facebook.
Yeah. But like I know, you know, these guys like my parents' age who are in they're like on Facebook constantly. You know, I have no idea what they're doing though. You know, like how do
Yeah.
you find that out? It's
Yeah, so part of it's just really defining that audience a little bit more and figuring out, you know, who are you trying to target and what is their problem. Another way to look at it is Facebook is a platform, it's a channel, but within Facebook there's a lot that you can do based on where your problem is in the marketing funnel. Is your problem trying to get more brand awareness? Well, you can do a different type of ad to kind of introduce yourself to a new audience, and you could do targeting based on people that are owners of
yeah.
you know, so you can target owners or people that work at you know, one of those towing companies. You can target events, you know, so if there's a trade show or something, you can do targeted advertising there. You know, people that like other companies like yours, you know,
Yeah.
so, you know, if they like Snap-on tools or something like, you know,
Right.
you know, you can target people like that. If it's more of awareness of specific products, then you can do a different type of ad to that. If it's more, sometimes Facebook's just good to kind of reinforce your existing community. So it would be kind of the people that you already have an audience with.
Yeah.
How, you know, you want to kind of stay top of mind with them so that they can then recommend you to someone else. So for each of these channels, it's not necessarily, you know, should we do Facebook, it's how do we do Facebook. It's not just should we do Facebook, but how do we do it based on where we need that that boost in our marketing funnel.
I feel like the couple times I've done paid ads on Facebook, I've done like I feel like I'm like fishing, and I have no, like I'll do like business owner, age 45 to 65, likes whatever the show on TV is that like I know all these towing guys watch or whatever, and the equipment we sell. Like, but I just. I don't, you know,
So-
even with measuring, like it still doesn't ever seem like it gets
Here's
me
the
anywhere.
best way to explain it. So Google makes updates all of the time, and it's all based on information that they're gathering from every single user in Google. What they do, I mean, Google has more information on the buying habits and social habits of human beings than anybody probably ever will for history.
And for the record, it's creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's creepy. You know, we're in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, the
we
more
think
we've
it's
got
creepy
all of
stuff.
these devices connected to help Google and Apple and everybody else understand what we do. But Facebook is absolutely no different. So yes, Facebook's strategy is to make money, hands down. But Facebook also knows the way that they sell advertising is understanding how people are buying things on social media. So the reason that Facebook stopped promoting business posts so much is because Facebook is a social platform. So they're looking at what people do in their newsfeed, and in most cases, they're interacting with the post that their grandma made, the video, the selfie that their grandpa put up there, and they're bypassing some of the business pages and some of the things. Now, there's a lot of ads. They get me all the time, to buy these cute little baby shoes or, whatever they are. But when it comes to something that you're looking for from a B2B perspective, you're probably not seeing any traction or gaining any traction because Facebook doesn't deem your ads or your content is something that somebody wants to see. They don't have intent to view something like that while they're scrolling through their Facebook newsfeed. So it's why they pulled so much business information out of the newsfeed, because they want that to be, just like the search results page, they want that to be tailored specifically to how they've watched people use Facebook over the years.
Yeah, and so, some other ways you can use Facebook would be for remarketing. So if you've ever done a search and you've, been on e-commerce and you've seen something like on Amazon and then you didn't buy it and then you see that thing again and again and again, and it just keeps following you. Or even sometimes if it's not done right and you made that purchase and it keeps following you still, there's, it's retargeting. It's a way to say, it's to remind them that you're still there. And so even if you are not connected to them on Facebook, but they went to your website and they went to a specific page, you can run an ad on Facebook to just reintroduce yourself to them. You can also upload your customer email list, and you can say, show ads just to these people, or send to Facebook, hey, here's a list of our customers, we want to show ads to people just like them. And then that's where Facebook starts saying, okay, well, based on all the public data we know, they like this show, they like this thing, they start making a profile, and it's called a lookalike audience, and they can do some of the heavy lifting for you.
You're stealing my whole presentation.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, I need to kind of start muscling through here. So I'm gonna skip channel strategy, the rest of that. I mean, obviously there's a lot of marketing channels out there. Again, it is not one size fits all for all businesses, so it's really understanding. You do have to be willing to test a channel. So if you do think that you want to invest money in a marketing channel, you can't be emotionally tied to your marketing dollars. Once you set them out there and you say, this is what we're gonna spend, you have to give a channel time to work. You can't let it ride for 30 days and say, well, we haven't seen anything from this, shut it off. I mean, we've watched clients that we've used channels for, and they've had to just kind of suck it up for 12 months, and then all of a sudden it starts to, we've got better targeting, we've used data to tweak it, we're, changing budgets, changing ad groups. So, you don't want to stay in a channel for too long and lose money, but you also don't want to be ready to abandon it too quick without really making sure that it can or cannot work. There is some risk to marketing, but with good data, you should be able to make good decisions, but you shouldn't have an expectation that you're gonna see an immediate return on your investment, even for things like paid search or paid social. Some of that will fall into that branding funnel, some will fall into the middle of the funnel, and some you will see conversions from. We have a client that spends an enormous amount of money, and they might get 3 leads a year off of that money, and they're really happy with it because the amount that they sell off of that one lead could be $500,000. So even if they spend $50,000 all year, 3 of those leads is well worth it to them. So you really have to have a good expectation and understand. I had a client that was spending $300 on paid search in a very competitive market, and we were getting them 3 leads a month for that spend, and they kept coming back to me saying, well, we're just getting such a small amount of leads. And I said, well, let's talk about what a lead is worth to you. And how much is that sale? How much is the value of that customer? Well, if I walked up to any of your advisors and said, give me $100 and I'm gonna give you a brand new customer that's gonna put all their investments with you for the rest of their life, is that worth it to you? Well, heck yeah, it is. Well, why do you have a higher expectation for how far those dollars would stretch if $100 is a good cost per lead? If you want 10 leads a month, then how much do you have to spend? You have to 10 times that $300 investment to get that many leads. And they do, if they increase it, they do see that the system works in that way, but you can't have an unrealistic expectation for the channel or for how much you're gonna get from a lead. So here's some messaging. I heard, you guys have been doing some of your own just leader positioning. This is again a process that we recently went through with our company, just to lay out some foundational messaging. Marketing is not only important to be outward facing. Your internal teams have to be completely connected to what you're doing, where you're doing it, how you're talking about it, how they should talk about it. If any one of your team members had somebody come up to them and say, "Oh, what do you do?" Are they gonna say, "Well, I install flooring"? Or are they gonna say, "We help people beautify their homes by installing amazing floors"? And the more you can get them on the same page with how they talk about your company, and it becomes just natural for them, they can end with, "And I help install floors for that great company that does those things." But this kind of helps you determine what some of those positioning statements are that you are going to teach internally and you're going to use externally, and it's how you're going to talk about your company at every interaction. So your purpose, calls, or passion. So 7 to 10 words, and it is the most difficult thing in the world. Brandon is a writer, and I'm sure he can tell you, the most difficult thing in the world is to write less words about something. So to say, "Tell me one sentence about your business," it's like, you're thinking, okay, what's my elevator pitch? And if I said do it in 7 to 10 words, it's like, it took our leadership team like a lot of time to pare down. So our purpose, calls, or passion is to play a meaningful role in the success of businesses. Simple. I mean, that's what, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. Every one of our clients, we want their business to be more successful. So it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be flashy. And what is our niche? What is the segment of business that we're really trying to accomplish? We want to increase qualified leads for businesses with localized markets. So that's our niche. It doesn't mean we don't help businesses with national audiences or, B2B businesses or B2C, but that is our niche. That is our strong suit. That is where, when we look for a client, we love when they fit into that bucket. So our 3 uniques. This is so funny because we went through this exercise and we did probably what everybody does. Like, we're very transparent and
Customer focused.
Yeah, we're customer focused. We partner. We're not a vendor. And it's so as we
Everyone says
write
that,
all
yeah.
of these
Buzzwords.
things down, we said, okay, let's go to our competitors' websites and see how many of these things they say. We're innovative, we're idea people, we're big thinkers, So, you write all of these things that you think are good attributes of your company, and then you write all of the things that your competitors can say, and then you cross out everything that's similar. And hopefully you have some things left. We really didn't. So our 3 uniques had to be something that none of our competitors could say. So, and some of it we don't know, we're just kind of taking a shot in the dark, but we have between a 96 and 98% client retention rate at all times. Now, our competitors might say that, but it's not on their websites, they're not saying it anywhere, and we know the industry well enough that we know most of our competitors probably can't say that. That is one of the things that we lead with. We have a 96 to 98% client retention rate. I can't remember what all of them are.
30 day.
I should.
Out. 30
That's our
day.
guarantee.
Out.
So something like that. What do you do that nobody else does? How do you transform your industry and do things that make you so different? It might be your process, it might be the material you use, it might be the people that you hire, it might be the background screenings that you do. Whatever that is, you want 3 things that is going to be important to your audience that nobody else can say. And if you don't have 3, I would suggest you start figuring out what is that little thing that you can do that sets you apart that nobody else can say.
Oftentimes, when you're talking about marketing, it's you start exposing issues within your company,
Yeah.
or you start, having some of those conversations that should have happened a long time ago. It's the same thing. It's no different. Like if we were rebuilding a website, the website that you built years ago said stuff and had priorities from different leadership, different ownership, whatever. And then when you rebuild it, you have those conversations of, well, do we still want to do this? Do we still want to position ourselves this way?
We haven't done that for
So,
5 years. We should probably take
yeah.
that off the website.
Yeah, and so a lot of times coming up with a marketing plan is maybe cover, or it gives you permission to have some of those conversations that you probably need to have a while ago.
One of our uniques is that for every dollar our clients pay us, we show them work that our teams did internally for that money and that time, which is very unique in our industry. We're very, so we don't just say we're transparent, we say how we are transparent. Because most of our competitors will never tell a customer at the beginning of a month, you will see how we spent every dollar that you paid us in that previous month. So that is a really big differentiator and a tool for your salespeople, because they're probably saying the same things that all of the industry professionals say in your industry about what you do. Your proven process. So what is it that makes you successful? How do you serve clients? What is it that you go through? And it's always going to be different. I think ours is near user marketing, which I looked at that and I was like, is that really our proven process? But so we probably have some room to work in there. But how do you make your products? Is it consistent all the time? What is the process that from the time you bring in a new lead till the time you serve them well, what is it that is that recipe for success with those customers? And there really is no, I wouldn't make that really lengthy or wordy, but as succinct as you can say it, here's what has made us successful in serving our clients over the year. For is it the Garden Inns, Hilton Garden Inn, or one of them, like their proven process is when somebody walks in, we hand them a freshly baked cookie. They remember that? Is it Doubletree? Doubletree. We hand them that freshly baked cookie, and every time they stay here, it's like they walk in there knowing they're gonna get that cookie, and that starts our guests off happy when they go to the room.
We also have a roofer, and they're talking about what makes us different than our competitors, even with uniques. And the one thing that they kind of came up with at the end of the meeting was, it's really just the way that we are efficient and the way that our processes are laid out in our company. That's one of our uniques. So if you do have a proven process, it's great to talk about it in number 4, but that might even be one of your uniques. You're more efficient, you're a better company to work with because you have all of these laid out processes, and it makes it so much easier for somebody to work with you as compared to maybe one of your competitors.
So number 5 was hard for us because we're like, how do you have a guarantee in marketing? And our clients aren't in a contract, they sign an agreement that they'll work with us for 12 months, and that's because it takes 12 months year-over-year data to really understand how impactful our efforts have been. But we never had a guarantee, and I'm like, what are we guaranteeing? Like, if we don't get you a certain number of leads, you'll get your money back? Well, that's crazy. But our guarantee is that we guarantee that you will be happy with us, or you can get out of your agreement within 30 days. So that is our guarantee. If at any time you're unhappy, you walk away, everything that we've done for you goes with you. We will help set you up with your new partner and take that away. So telling customers you can feel safe working with us, and here's what our guarantee is, and a guarantee isn't a warranty. A guarantee is, how am I gonna make it okay if something goes wrong? How am I gonna make that up to you? And it doesn't have to be dollars and cents, it doesn't have to be big money, but being able to clearly show on your website and any documentation, here's what we're gonna guarantee, is a really big trust factor for somebody that's going to work with you. So messaging. Messaging takes on a lot of different forms. It's crazy because we see clients that have one vendor that does their social media, they have another vendor that maybe does their Google ads, they have 2 people in-house that do their marketing and write their website content. And when you would read all of it, it all sounds completely different. On social they might be doing something funny and laid back and using animals, and then over here in your Clipper magazine ad, you're showcasing people, and it's very serious, and it's offer driven. So messaging kind of encompasses all of that. Like, who are we? How do we speak about the company? What is our tone? What is our voice? And it's okay to be lighthearted on some channels and a little more serious on others, but it still needs to look and feel and sound like you're all part of the same unit. So messaging can be, your brand promise, your tagline, what is our voice and tone, sometimes putting attributes to that. So we are always confident. We're not afraid to talk good about our accomplishments. We're not cocky or arrogant. We don't talk about our competitors in our content, but we're not afraid to say that we feel we are best in class in this industry or this area. So it's laying out those parameters that when somebody is writing content or they're writing messaging for your company, that there are guidelines and parameters. We never talk about religion, politics, competitors, guarantees. I don't know what it is, but there are parameters around how someone should speak or write or talk or create messaging, whether it's short, long, paragraph, direct mail, Google Ads. It all should have consistency in the way that you're talking about
We
it.
have a client down in North Carolina and Tennessee. They're a safe dealer, very, very southern. And the person that was running their social media account was just a young nephew or something, and easily got into talking about the Second Amendment on their social media accounts and, safe, guns, Second Amendment. They thought it all kind of corresponds. Why would we not talk about that type of issue? And then finally it gets back to the business owner that for the last couple of months, they're talking about something super controversial on their social media channels and getting all this flack and comments and whatnot. But the person came back and said, I didn't, you never really gave me a framework for how I'm supposed to be talking, or, and there's obviously some common sense there, but at the end of the day, having a framework of here's how we're, it's true.
Do they sell
Tennessee,
gun
North
safes?
Carolina.
Yeah.
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 I would think that would sell.
Well, then there's also.
But you open yourself
yeah,
up to the people that might see that aren't gun enthusiasts and wouldn't own a gun safe, that are gonna be, it's better to err on the side of caution and say, we just don't ever talk about this. Our customers might actually like it, but if it's gonna upset other people, you're doing more harm than you are good, especially in that,
It
especially in
also-
that
How would you
instance.
market a safe company without talking about guns? Because your predominant purchasers.
Well, you talk about guns, but not like everybody needs a gun.
It's-
Second Amendment. You
They,
know what I
they
mean?
were
Like,
doing like spoofy videos that they would find online, and memes and just stuff that wasn't totally appropriate. Speaking about guns and gun safes, talk about keeping your children
Yeah.
safe, your family safe.
Documents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
statistics on gun safety and how locking them up can prevent a catastrophe from happening.
If
But-
you are in a industry where there
A
could be some,
polarizing industry.
Polarizing, and you'd be surprised at what polarizing is.
Oh, yeah,
Because within Facebook and Google there are some regulations as to you can't. I mean, so obviously political ads are one whole thing, but then on Google there's a lot you can't advertise on medical wise because
or
you don't
religion.
or religion and all so because there's they want to cover their butts basically, but so it makes it challenging if you are for a gun safe. You can't. Can you use the word gun in
I
ad
can
copy?
use the word gun on a Google ad copy, but on a Facebook ad or a Google display ad, I can't show a gun, and it's a gun safe company. So it's like, how do you
Yeah.
message and how do you show creatively a safe when Google and Facebook and all these other companies have so many regulations out there about what you can and cannot. I mean, we have a company that does IV drips, and it's like, okay, well, I can't show IV bags on creative. It's like, okay, well, now you got to be more creative with things that you can show, but it all goes back to how are we going to talk about this, how are we going to approach this specific subject.
So your value proposition, your positioning statement, evidence that supports the claim. So a lot of times case studies can work well for this, especially in a B2B environment. So, how do you talk about your accomplishments? How do you showcase them? If you've got 4 different divisions and each division is writing their own case study and they're all written different, they sound different, there should be consistency to how you're putting your message out there, how you're showing something that's emotionally compelling about how it's going to affect someone. There's a lot of studies out there about messaging, and it's kind of first sense for us to talk about the company when we put messaging out there. So even in a headline, what will we do for somebody? We will, install great flooring in your home. But there's a lot of research that shows that leading with the customer and talking about the customer and what the customer is going to benefit from your product actually sells more. And it's, statistics like 45% higher click-through rates and everything else when you say, get a beautiful floor for your home at, you know, competitive rates or whatever it is, I'm just making that up, instead of saying, we install these kind of custom floors in your home, our installers are top of the line, trained, background check, blah, blah, blah. You're just talking about you, and they don't care about that. They care about what's in it for me. So leading with get, save, I don't know, I can't off the top of my head think of anything. But how can you talk about the benefit to the customer and not we will give you, or we do, or we have, because you're talking about you. Keep it in the terms of what you're giving the customer, especially in the headline.
I would also like somebody like Simon Sinek or somebody would draw you the circles and say like the way that it used to be was you explain what you do and then how you do it and then why you do it, and now it's better to explain, you know, we believe customers shouldn't have to wait for such and such a
And
product.
not even we believe, so you should not have to
Fair
wait.
enough, right?
So it's just those little tweaks to your content that now says, wow, they're talking to me and they know my pain. Agitate the problem. So if you know that a lot of your customers, again, I'm gonna keep picking on flooring, but you know a lot of your customers come to you that they have hardwood floors and they have dogs and they're scraping them all up and they're looking for a different option. So maybe on your laminate flooring page, you're talking about, you know, you may have, you know, you may suffer from dogs doing this or dogs doing that or whatever, but always putting the content in the terms of, we understand your problem and we know how to fix it, and then
By the
here's
way,
the
we sell
proof that we
floors,
fixed
yeah.
it for people just like you. And at the end of the day, here's how we're gonna make sure that you're happy. Things like that guarantee are gonna come into place. But focusing everything that you talk about on what is the benefit to the customer and by audience. So for one audience, they may not care about things that another audience cares about, and you have to make sure that you have messaging for both. If you have a commercial and residential area to your website, you need to make sure that you're speaking to both of those audiences, still in the same voice and tone, but to a completely different audience than you are if you're talking to a homeowner that's making, you know, a purchase decision, and you might be talking to a buyer or, you know, a director of finance about a different purchase. So how do you talk to both of them? And then again, tactical modifiers, how context and channel modify the message. So Facebook and Instagram, maybe you could be a little more playful with your content, but on your website, you want to speak much differently. Still feel like it's the same company, but know when and how to be playful and not to be playful. In a Google ad, when you've got a short amount of content to really capture somebody and you want to make sure if you pay for that click that it's a good potential customer, you know, you need to be very succinct about what you're saying in that ad and how you're capturing someone. And that would be where you lead with the benefit to the customer, not necessarily, you know, we are the #1 flooring company and we won best of last year and we did this and we got that. We typically want to tout our accolades, but what is that customer, what's in their mind when they type in laminate flooring and they see your ad? What is going to make them click on that over anyone else's? And that's where your customer comes in. Mr. Customer, you're great, you've worked for us for so long. If you were Google searching for laminate flooring, what would I say in that ad that would make you click on it? Your answers, in most cases, lie right with your customers. They can tell you exactly what to say to other people like them to get them to buy from you.
I would even say look at the reviews that you already have gotten. There's a lot of information and reviews that you've already gotten online that you can put into your messaging. So if you continue to see a pattern in your reviews, I love their customer service. They had the best customer service because they gave me a chocolate chip cookie when I first walk in. Use that as an advantage because that's obviously what people are most interested in and love about you. And just use those on your website. Don't necessarily use the review on your website, but take pieces of it and use it for your messaging.
So content strategy. Content is probably one of the hardest things for somebody to kind of do for themselves, especially when it comes to website or any type of marketing content. Number one, again, you're typically emotionally tied and you're sometimes speaking from the factory floor. You're not necessarily speaking in the same way your customers would. We see with clients all the time that come to us and their website has terminology that we're like, what exactly does this mean? We had a higher education institution that's our client, and they have online courses and they have adult education courses, and those two combined were their accelerated programs. So that was an internal term that they used. Everyone on campus, if you said, what is accelerated? They would say, well, they are online adult ed part-time classes. But anybody searching, and Google has absolutely no idea what accelerated is. So for me, if I'm searching with intent to find a higher education institution that I can take online courses at home while I work full-time, I'm not, if something comes up and says accelerated, I mean, it might pique my interest because that to me says it's fast, like I can do it fast. But if the content in that ad doesn't speak to what I'm searching for, I'm not necessarily going to click on it. So speaking from the factory floor, the way you talk technically about your products or services may not be how somebody searches for it or what somebody's looking for. So when it comes to content and you're looking at, what is this page about? What are the main keywords that I need to highlight here based on what somebody would search and how Google would display this page? Make sure you're not speaking from the factory floor. Make sure you're speaking in the same terms that your customers would speak. We actually, for this higher ed institution, did a survey to their students in every area and said, how would you categorize yourself? If you were searching for the program that you're in, what would you look for? And their website now is broken down by traditional undergraduate, online, adult education, and master's and doctoral degrees. It was never set up that way before, but now we clearly have every audience in the bucket that is the most comfortable for them in terms that they understand and that Google understands, so they can display that as a search result based on those searches. So content's super important. I have some information about video. Video content is, as people start to digest things a lot in much smaller chunks, people are more likely to watch a video than they are ever to consume content. Not to mention, when we talk about your 3 uniques, what's your guarantee, how do you service your customers? If you're sitting in front of a camera, whether you're really great on camera or not, nobody will be able to read how compelling that story is than you would be able to say it in a video. Because you can hear emotion, you get to hear from other people within your company. A good overview video that says, here's who we are, here's why we do what we do, here are the people that do it, and here's where we do it. You will never be able to say that in the written word and with a picture of the front of your building beside it. So video is very, very impactful. I have some stats here on video. 81% of businesses use video as a marketing tool, up from 63% over last year. So video is continuing to grow. Mobile video consumption rises by 100% every year. 78% of people watch online videos every week, and 55% of people watch an online video every day. YouTube, second most popular website after Google. So people are doing, the second most searches happen on YouTube over Google. Anybody that wants to learn how to fix something, make something, change something, buy something, they're looking at.
And since Google owns YouTube, Google tends to prefer YouTube within the search results. So one thing, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the idea of search intent. It used to be that you would just target keywords, what are people searching for? But now Google changes the results based on intent. If there's an intent for more of a how-to type of search, then videos tend to show up a little bit more. And so it's a way to kind of target those things where your website might not show up, but a video of you explaining how to do this, or here's why you don't do it on your own, and here's why you need to hire an expert, that's where you can lead in.
For any of you that are B2B, 59% of executives say they would rather watch a video than read text. 59%, that's a huge number. Viewers retain 95% of a message when they watch it in video compared to 10% when they read it in text. 72% of customers would rather learn about a product or service by way of video, and social media posts with videos have 48% more views. So video can be expensive, but video can also be very affordable. You can purchase video in subscriptions. Somebody can come out and take lots of footage in a day or two and create multiple videos to use on many different channels in many different ways. Shorter videos under 30 seconds for YouTube advertising, which is a very cost effective, and Nate will yell at me if I say anything about it. He'll talk about it later. Even on social media. So the way that you're using video and the way you're using it on different pages, even case studies, getting people on videos to give testimonials, way more believable than words that you put on your website that say, oh, here, Mary C. said this about us, and I want you to trust me that Mary C. really said that about us. well, first of all, they know you're gonna pick out the best of reviews to put on your website, but watching somebody on video talk about your company and the experience they had and how it helped them is more compelling, probably sometimes even than them just reading a Google review. When you can see emotion, it just changes how someone feels.
Video can also be used offline. And I'm kicking myself for not bringing this, but we had a client, they sell software, it starts at $500,000. So it's important to get in
ERP
front of...
system.
Yeah, so it's important for them to get in front of the right people. And so we made a video mailer. It's a little booklet that you open it up and it's a video that's talking to you. Cost $40 per thing. But it got in front of the right person, you know, because when we, you know...
They got phone calls, where did you get this
Yeah.
made? Like, even if they didn't want to buy their services, somebody
It
called
was-
and got on the phone with them.
It was standing out for them, you know, so, you know, if you send out a traditional mailer, does it even get it to the decision maker's desk, or does it get thrown away? This got passed around. We heard anecdotally about people that, you know, took it right to the CEO and he wanted to keep it. He asked for another copy so that someone else could see it. You know, so it changes. Obviously, it's not something you can invest in for everyone, but you know, that's the type of, like, when we talk about content can, you know, website content's important, social media content, but you think about how your content can be spread elsewhere. Technology can change how we interact and how we market to people, and sometimes it's worth investing in something if you're going to see a good return from
Yeah, so we use video on every single lead that comes into the dealership, and they're all personalized. So if somebody inquires about a 2014 Toyota Corolla, like an hour later, they're going to get a video from one of my salespeople saying their name, you know, hey Sandra, it's Zach over at Cost 33 Toyota, we got your inquiry on this car, I'm going to show it to you right now. And then you could follow up a call to action because you gave people what they want. So like a lot of times, and it is an offline form because your email, like you need an email. So we've found that video is literally, video is the key over anything that we're going to do over the next 5 years. Starts with the customers receiving videos of us with the actual cars. For whatever reason, you know, people click on videos, they open it, like, instead of wondering what to write in the post to a lead, hey, thanks for your inquiry, what to say, it doesn't really matter what you say in a video because you're attaching your face to the lead. They know you, they know that you're actually a real person, and then the call to action feels more real. So like a lot of the advertising struggles that like the car business had was like people think everything is spam, right? I have like 500 unopened emails, I'm assuming, because it's like last day 20% off, blah blah blah. I don't care, like unless it tells me this is what you were looking for the other day and it's now 30% off, I do not care. So like a lot of people were wondering, like, well, what do we put in the context? What do we put? Like now, I only have to worry about what to put in the subject line. And if you put a 2014 Corolla inquiry, I can just say, Amy, 2014 Corolla, and Amy just opens it and clicks play, and you're so much further because instead of like, hey, you guys never got back to me. Hey, like if somebody submitted a lead, even if you sent out some sort of template email that set an expectation, hey, thanks for your lead, here's what we're gonna do next, but then one of your team members reached out, put their face to it, hey, you know,